Have you ever dropped a pallet of something while driving a forklift? I'm willing to bet that every forklift operator has at one point in their life. I want you to imagine if a coworker or a boss was nearby and they were impacted by the falling pallet, at the wrong place, at the wrong time. Transporting a load with a forklift across a job site safely begins with awareness and intention. In this Supply Chain Pros video, we will review the forklift safety best practices to ensure that the load you are moving makes it to its destination safely. Load condition. The first thing that a forklift operator should do before interacting with a load is perform a quick visual inspection to verify the load is in a suitable condition to place onto the forks. Some of the questions that should be asked include: is it on a good pallet? Is the load arranged in a stable manner? Is the load secured to the pallet? Or will it fall or shift during transport? Ensure picking up the load will not damage it in any way. This is especially important to check with product that overhangs off of the pallet. If there is a hazard with the product or the pallet, now is the time to address it by physically reconfiguring the items on the pallet or applying stretch wrap to make for a more stable and secure transport. Before entering the forks into the pallet, we should ensure that the forks are spaced as wide as the load will allow. Also, that the pallet is centered on the backrest of the carriage portion of the forklift. After inserting the forks into the pallet, lift slightly so that the pallet or object is lifted just a few inches off of the ground. Verify that the pallet is centered in relation to the backrest and that the forks are as far into the object as safely possible. The forks must go at least 2/3 of the way into the object being lifted for safe transport. It is also advised to tilt backwards to create a cradle for the pallet to lean against the backrest, but ensure that cradling the pallet will not damage the item being moved in any way. Next, evaluate and understand the height of the item being moved compared to the forklift that's being driven. Any objects being moved that are taller than the piece of equipment create an overhead obstruction hazard that will need to be understood before beginning to travel. As the forklift begins to travel, ensure that the line of sight is not blocked by the product or the mast of the forklift. It is always recommended to travel in reverse with forks trailing the equipment. When traveling, our forks should be no more than 4 to 6 inches at the tips from the floor and no more than 1 to 2 inches at the heel of the forks from the ground. When traveling, be aware that most forklifts do not handle the same way that a car, a truck, or an SUV does. Your personal vehicle likely turns at the front of the vehicle, whereas a forklift turns at the rear of the piece of equipment. This is intended to allow for the forklift to turn sharply and fit into very tight spaces. However, this can create the hazard of unintentionally making a sharp turn at a high speed that could lead to a tip over or product falling off of the forks of the lift. Turning should always be done with an appropriate control and speed. If a pallet were to fall off of your forks during a turn, this would be due to something known as centrifugal force. According to Isaac Newton's first law of motion, objects in motion will stay in motion until they are impacted by another force or object. Just as the pallet is traveling through the warehouse, if a forklift turns sharply, the product can continue moving in the original direction and fall off or slide off of the forks of the lift. Ensure that turns are at the appropriate speed to safely keep product on the forks of the forklift. Have you ever seen a pallet fall off of someone's forks when making a turn? Comment your best or your worst experiences down below. Finally, in the event that a forklift is traveling up or down an elevation change, such as a ramp, ensure that the product always remains uphill regardless of the direction of travel. If the forklift is traveling uphill with product on the forks, the forklift should travel forks first to continue to cradle the product against the backrest. In the event that the forklift is traveling downhill, ensure that the product remains uphill, cradling the product again against the backrest of the forklift. It is never advised to have the load be downhill of the lift. In this scenario, there is an increased chance of it sliding downward off of the forks and then being ran over or into by the moving forklift. For more forklift operation safety content, see the related videos in the link of the description below. Traveling with loaded forks is all about control. Controlled height, controlled speed, and controlled movement. Practice these habits every time you get behind the wheel. Safety isn't complicated, it's consistent. Thank you for watching, and keep operating the right way. If you found value in the content of this video, like and subscribe to the channel. This is your Supply Chain Pro, out.